Good morning. All right, we're going to try that again because I'm always a morning person and I like to get everybody's buy-in to the morning presentation. Good morning.
Good morning.
That is music to my ears. I'm Tammy Wharton, CEO of Girl Scouts of Ohio's Heartland, and I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you and to our community leaders, board members, Girl Scouts, and girl advocates that are here with us today. It is a pleasure having you join us for the 2019 State of the Girl event. This year, we're highlighting, which you'll be surprised, women in science, technology, engineering, and math, known as STEM. So I hope you'll enjoy today's conversations. I know we've already started many of them. Joining us this morning are a few of my colleagues, Ronnie Luckenbill, CEO from Girl Scouts of Western Ohio, and Jane Christensen from Northeast Ohio. They had to get up at the crack of dawn to be here, so they appreciate the applause. We're also very proud to have our premier sponsor, AEP, sponsoring our event today, and our silver sponsors, 31 Gifts, Glenn and Shaquila Aaron's Family Foundation, and JP Morgan Chase, as well as other sponsors, partners, and we have many community organizations serving as table facilitators. Now, if you're a table facilitator today, will you please stand to be recognized? Because we truly appreciate all of our community members that are supporting our girls in our community. Now, this morning, you're going to hear from two very accomplished women who are true innovators in their field. First, Silvia Savato, the CEO of Girl Scouts of the USA, started her career as a rocket scientist. Yes, that is true, a rocket scientist. And you thought we only made jokes about stuff like that. She was a rocket scientist with NASA before going on to serve in executive and business development roles at little-known companies like Dell, Apple, IBM, and several other technology companies. Silvia was the founder and president and CEO of Communicard LLC, a marketing firm known for its innovative approaches to working with the changing community demographics. She continuously advocates for STEM education and recently published a book called Pact to the Stars, My Journey from Girl Scouts to Rocket Scientist. And it says it's an inspiring memoir for young readers, but I can tell you, old readers alike enjoy it. It's a great read. Please welcome Silvia Savato. Our next guest, Dr. Katherine Sullivan, has a long career as a distinguished scientist, astronaut, and executive. In 1978, she was one of 6 women to join the NASA Astronaut Corps. Dr. Sullivan holds an incredible distinction of being the first American woman to walk in space. And I believe in a previous conversation a long time ago, if my memory serves me, you were on a treadmill running across the ocean. Something like that. So figure that one out. What was that, 15 minutes?
12.
Oh, okay, 12. Okay, good. In 15 years with NASA, she flew on 3 space shuttle missions, including the 1990 mission to deploy the Hubble Space Telescope. Kathy served as president and CEO of COSI, right here in town, from 1996 to 2006, until she was recruited by The Ohio State University to be the first director of the Battelle Center for Science and Technology, which is now the Public Affairs College. In 2014, Kathy was confirmed by the United States Senate as the 10th administrator of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the nation's top science agency for climate, oceans, and the atmosphere. And even more importantly, Kathy was a former Mariner Scout. She's a lifetime Girl Scout, and she won the Juliet Award for Outstanding Woman. Please join me in welcoming Kathy Sullivan. And now, I'm going to get off the stage and leave it to the professionals and introduce Tracy Townsend, news anchor for WBNS 10 TV. Tracy is their medical correspondent and covers health issues affecting families. Tracy also works with 10 TV Productions on Toward a Cancer-Free World, a weekly segment featuring the world-renowned experts at The Ohio State University Comprehensive Cancer Center, James Cancer Hospital, and Soloff Research Institute. Many of you will recognize Tracy as the anchor of the 5:30 and noon editions on 10 TV. And like the other three on stage, Tracy was a Girl Scout. So please welcome Tracy Townsend.
Thank you. Can we all just take a big, deep breath? I feel like I am among stars. I hate to say that because the NASA, but I'm having a moment here because you two are so sharp. And that's not on the script, but you're just sharp. I mean, wow. I am really very excited to be here. You've heard their bios. They're tremendous. They're incredible leaders in their fields. And so we are going to have this rare opportunity today to listen to them and get some jewels of wisdom for our own journeys, especially the young people who are here today. So we want to get right to it so we can ask our questions and hopefully open it up for your questions. So we'll get to that in just a short order. We want to start with Silvia, and again, we heard about your achievements, those little companies that you worked for. Tell us something that we didn't hear in your bio.
You know, well, first, let me say it's great to be back in Columbus. I've actually been here quite a few times, and it's really great to be here. I was here last year, actually, here on stage, and then I came for the convention and other times as well. So it's wonderful to be back. So thank you very much. And actually, it's a dream come true for me to meet her too as well. So I'm really excited about that as well. You know, what a lot of people don't know about me is I was actually born on an Air Force base, Ellsworth Air Force Base in South Dakota. And that was really important because all my grandparents were from Mexico. My mom was born in Mexico. My dad was born in the U.S. And then he was in the military, and he was stationed on that base. And that's where I was born. And think about my mom, monolingual Spanish-speaking mom. She was there in South Dakota in the cold, cold winter. She'd been raised in the desert. It was a really harsh environment. So when they moved back to where our family's from in Las Cruces, New Mexico, she made it a point to make sure that we learned English. And so I actually learned English in a Baptist church. There was a bilingual Baptist missionary. And so my first words in English were actually the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. And so, you know, so that kind of really sticks with me. So the importance of being bilingual and just that sense of pride and civic duty it's deep in my heart.
That's good. That's very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. What about you, Kathy?
Actually, I'm going to pick up where Silvia started on languages, because my first vision for how I would craft a pathway through the world banked on a family friend helping me recognize that I have sort of a natural flair, a natural ear for languages, at least the European Romance languages. This was when I was in 5th grade. So that's about the age that you have not really, at least I hadn't, yet kind of figured out something about me that was just me and not, you know, me as one of the kids in the family. And so I started parlaying and really getting interested in that town. I'm the odd kid that took books home from the library in grade 5 about Italian, because that was just another fascinating culture far away from anything I knew. So I just studied French starting in 8th grade and German starting in 9th grade, and was going to college to do languages and linguistics, changed the math electives you could take in high school over for more languages. And then I got to university and discovered the pathway, the better pathway to the sort of adventurous traveling life that I was really after was actually in the sciences instead of in the languages. And happily, I went to a university that didn't see those as separated by a Grand Canyon that couldn't be crossed, that didn't think a 17-year-old French major asking what does a geologist do was a stupid question. It actually was a stupid question, but they respected the curiosity under that, and so helped me change my path back over to the sciences. I had to scramble a lot because I had to fill holes in my math that I could have filled them up when I was in high school, but I didn't see that far. So languages, and none of that was wasted effort, by the way. It has let me see the world and understand the world in different ways than I ever could if I needed to make everyone meet me in my language and had no way to really appreciate their culture.
And what a great story for those who think they might want to start in languages. You can kind of have a second act. You can do something different.
You can.
That's amazing. So let's talk about research. So much research on what our kids are learning right now. And surprisingly, by second grade, there's the stereotype that math is for boys, not girls. That was hard to choke out because I just was like, really? But it's research. So by third grade, girls form their STEM identity. By high school, only 11% of girls declare an interest in STEM. So we wanted to hear from both of you about when you first discovered your passion for STEM and have you tell us what it was that sparked your interest. Whoever wants to start.
Well, you know, for me, it actually had to do with Girl Scouts. So being raised in southern New Mexico, there's beautiful stars at night. And I just thought that they were twinkly lights. And what changed for me was one night we were camping, and I had just finished eating s'mores, my first s'mores, so still in that afterglow. And I was looking at the stars, but to me they were just twinkly lights. And my troop leader came and sat beside me, and she said, you know, she pointed out that there were stars and planets, and that there were constellations, the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper. And before then, I didn't know that. I just thought they were twinkly lights. You know, my parents had seen me looking at the stars, but they hadn't taught me about the constellations and stuff. And so that really stayed with me. And my troop leader remembered that. So a couple of years later, when we were earning badges, and I was earning a cooking badge, because all my friends were earning a cooking badge because I was a girl and I wanted to be like my friends, she recommended that I look at earning a science badge. And I said, no, I'm earning a cooking badge. And she introduced me to that important thing you learn as a woman about multitasking. You could do both. And so I began taking both my science and earning my science and cooking badge at the same time, which was really important because I had some disasters in cooking. And so you learn problem solving, you learn importance about the sequence, you learn the importance of heat. At the same time, I'm making an Estes rocket, and the exact same thing, I'm problem solving. There's this thing that's stopping my rocket from leaving the sand. What is it? It's this thing called gravity. And so I really became fascinated on how do you break gravity's grip. And so then I began problem solving, and I finally got it so that rocket went up into the sky. And I learned I could do science. And at that time, you know, girls really weren't encouraged to do science, but thanks Girl Scouts, we've had science badges from our very beginning.
How long?
107 years,
Thank you.
right?
Okay.
And one of our first badges was the electrician badge. So we've had science all the way from the very beginning. But for me then, I thought I could do it, and I began taking science classes, and then I began taking math classes, and then I realized I was good at it, and then the more I did it, the better I got at it, the better, you know, when you're a kid, you do something well, you do it more, and then the more you do it, and I got so good at math and science, I became rocket science good.
That's impressive.
Yeah, so thanks to Girl Scouts, that put me on my path, and I never would have been on that path had it not been for Girl Scouts. And the reason I know this so clearly is about 12 years ago, I got a call from the Stanford History Archives Department. And I'll tell you, it feels kind of strange to have somebody call you and say, I'm from the Archives Department, I want to talk to you about you. You're like, oh, man. But they said, you know, you're one of the first Hispanic, male or female, to have ever gotten your master's degree in engineering from Stanford. And you know, that's right in Silicon Valley, and that's like the gateway to technology. So people at the graduate school compete from the world. You have to get an application from the Korean government, from German government. It's a big deal to just apply and then get in. And they're like, so you're one of the first Hispanic, male or female, and still unfortunately one of the few. And frankly, we weren't even interviewing and recruiting from the part of the country you're from. So how'd you get in, you know? Like, how did that happen? And then not only did you do well, you know, you went on and had a great career. And so at that point, I hadn't put together how instrumental Girl Scouts was, because they asked me, so how was it that you liked science and math? Were your parents college professors? No. Were they rich ranchers? No, not at all. We were, we lived on a dirt street for part of my life. We lived with family because we couldn't afford it. So no, none of that. And then I realized that Girl Scouts hands-on, girl-only environment gave me the courage and the confidence to try something. Then I got good at it, I kept doing it, and then I got so good I went on to become a rocket scientist and work at, and graduate from Stanford. So I was so grateful for that because it really told me how important Girl Scouts was. And I had always bought Girl Scout cookies, I was always a proud alum that way, but I hadn't realized that it was the pivotal point in my life.
Wow, that's really impressive.
It is very impressive.
And she can say she's a rocket scientist.
And that.
Yes.
So for me, Girl Scouts played key roles in my life, but I'm fortunate that for me, I had two parents who, from the youngest age, made being curious like the best family sport. And I have one brother, he's 16 months older than I. There was never anything that either of us was curious about that ever came with an edit, like, oh, sweetheart, girls don't do that, or, oh, son, boys don't do that. If we were curious, they would help us explore that curiosity. And so I think I had probably till age 5 or 6 or 7, very unfiltered, unslanted permission to be curious about anything. 2 quick anecdotes. We had a kindergarten assignment that I remember vividly. It was to, obviously with your mother's help, write your Christmas list. What do you want for Christmas? Black and white TV, just a couple of channels, early kids cartoons, and all the ads are toys they're trying to push on the kids for Christmas. There was a toy that moved in these interesting ways. You had levers, and you could make it pivot and go up and down and turn. I wanted to know how that worked. So that was the first thing I wrote down. There were a couple other toys like that. And it turns out they were all guns. And so the kindergarten teacher gets up in front of the class reading through every kid's list, and she comes to my list and she reads the first thing is this pom-pom gun, and I go, oh, now this is my list. And then she reads the next one and she looks a little, and then the third one she's like getting a little pale and coughs a bit. And then she says, oh, our little gun mall. I'm 5. I had no idea what gun mall meant, but I could tell it wasn't good. And interestingly, though, the flash of recognition that went through my mind is, she doesn't understand. She thinks it's about the guns. It's about the curiosity of how something works. So she was right away trying to, guns are good or guns are bad, guns are girls or guns are boys. And I give it all to my parents that there was just enough sense of composure already instilled in us for me to know, I didn't like that, by the way. It was not a comfortable moment, but the saving grace was that little thought in my head that said, she's wrong and it's okay for me to be curious about how things work. My first touch with rocket science is picking 2nd grade reading books out of our library. I cannot begin to tell you how or why I landed on this book. It was a skinny little book about rocketry. And I opened that and started reading, and I saw a child's version, I'm sure, of the equation for escape velocity. You talked about breaking Earth's gravity. So at age 6, 7, I discovered it's possible to know how fast you need to go to get away from the planet. Like, people know that. It's like a number. It's like the speedometer on your car. How cool is that? And then I got lost in languages for many years and wandered back later, as I told you before.
So you remember escape velocity? We're really nerds, aren't we?
And we love that.
And it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Let me tell you, the stereotype is dead wrong. Nerds actually have all the really cool fun. Definitely the world's coolest toys. Yeah.
What would you say about girls'
Can I come back
ability?
1 second?
Sure.
Maybe you're going there. I was going to come back to the thing about
okay.
math.
Okay.
And girls at an early age thinking that it's not good, they're not good at it?
Yes. You are so smart. I was going to talk about
Is that where you were going?
I'm going there.
Oh, well,
yes.
let me get out of your way.
That's all right. But we want to have you talk about girls and their ability at that age and what they know about it. We don't need that. And thank you.
Help each other out.
Yes, and this is my little This is my security here, my pen. What they know about it, and I was really struck by what that kindergarten teacher of yours. So let's pick up from there.
So I'm going to pick up on the word ability, because this is something I've certainly learned, and it's in the research, it's in the literature. More adults should know this and be helpful in coaching young people with it. Anything, Sylvia, what you talked about your early steps in rocketry, my early steps in language. Yes, we all have a certain spectrum of aptitudes that make some things easier for us than others. And yeah, it's not a bad philosophy to build on your strengths, but we often forget the shore up your weaknesses part. And anything, whether it's learning an instrument, learning a language, getting really good at math, I think it's more useful to think of it as a muscle that you choose to exercise and build. Interestingly, if you look in other countries and other cultures, the United States stands out in being very, very locked on, hyper-focused on the notion that science is something you go into if you have the ability. And in other countries, by a resounding margin, they realize science is a skill you build. It's something you build. It's not something you're either blessed with or not. And I get really, one of my pet peeves is parents, especially women, especially mothers, who a girl will come home with a not great science grade or a not great math grade, and instead of saying, well, that's a good start, let's work on moving further, they say, oh, that's okay, sweetie, mommy wasn't any good at math either. And you just gave that young girl permission to opt out. You just told her, if you think your mom's okay, you'll be okay too if you don't try anymore. Life is about trying. Life is about getting back up when something hit you on your butt, frankly, and trying again. We know that in sports, but it's true in every other aptitude and every other skill and every other talent that you have within you. It takes some work to bring it out and polish it up.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And then there's also that aspect of something is right in front of us and we don't see it. I think there's a word for it, scotoma. But there's something right there and you don't see it. And a lot of that happens with girls in fields like math, science, and even with computers. At Girl Scouts, we have a research institute, Girl Scout Research Institute, and we just published a study, Decoding the Digital Girl. And one of the findings we found was that girls really do like digital. They have a lot of digital literacy and a lot of digital leadership, but their teachers and their parents don't acknowledge it. And so they will be able to really understand how to get information, how to validate the information so it's coming on a good source, how to be creative online, how to create communities online, how to understand technology, but it's not encouraged. So if a parent has a child, both boy and a girl, and they see them using the computer, they'll automatically think the boy has higher technology aptitude, and then use him as being the family network guru, right? And the same thing happens at school, even though the girl actually might have even more aptitude. But there is a lot about people thinking and assuming you're not as good at it, and so then it's not encouraged. And then because it's not encouraged, you're not given additional opportunities to try to figure things out. And that really is, sometimes really holds girls back. But what we found through the GSRI research report, which is free. You go to our website, it's Decoding the Digital Girl. It's available for everybody. Girls really do have that aptitude and that interest and that leadership. So it's very important to encourage that as well.
The word leadership, one of the things Girl Scouts did for me, I think this was around, it must have been very early high school in my Mariner troop, is some of the other troop leaders talking to my parents said something about my being a real leader in the group. I didn't feel like a leader. No one had ever really talked to me about what being a leader means or what traits in me they saw that made me a leader. I think we were attuned to grooming that and fostering that in young boys, but we didn't really think about it in girls. And it was like an eye-opener to me and it came secondhand, right, from a troop leader to my parents saying, they see you as a leader. And it really started me thinking, why don't I feel like a leader? If people are seeing me like one, why don't I feel like one? Why don't I know what that means I have? Why don't I know more about how to do something worthwhile? with that. And so it was a long journey figuring that out.
What's important to really promote that concept of digital leadership or that leadership with girls, because right now the world is being remade around technology, and it's being remade by a mathematical sentence, which is called an algorithm, one thing at a time. So the entire world, whether it's that Alexa in your home, whether it's the Nest machine that's regulating your temperature at home, whether it's the way you do banking, insurance, even the fashion industry, it's a $3 trillion industry completely being redone around fashion. And I was just at the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York, and they told me that girls were dropping out. And I said, why on earth are they dropping out of fashion? And they said, because of technology. I said, how's that? Well, they said, well, we're switching over and not using scissors, manual cutting anymore. We're using these devices called Crickets. Anybody got a Cricket? Anyway, so it's just it's a very easy to program device, and that it cuts material precisely. But it's not hardcore programming, but it does have a modicum of programming. But a lot of women come in and say, oh, I don't do programming, and they leave. And then also a lot of the way they're doing design, hand sketches now are also done on a tablet. And girls go, I don't do that. You now have cut yourself out from this entire industry that is being completely remade around technology. And we're seeing that in arts, we're seeing that in theater, as well as in the technical fields as well. And you think about it, you know, our digital devices are going to become, or rapidly are, our doctors in our pocket. And we want to make sure that there's somebody there who's designing and defining what that is thinking about women, or thinking about our needs. You know, when they initially got designed, it was an opt-in without an opt-out. And what that has meant is everyone can track where we are in our mobile devices. And for men, that hasn't been a problem, but for women, it has cost them their lives. Because the Uber driver, because the former relationship gone bad, somebody tracks you down. And those firms, the designers, were mostly men who never thought about that. Safety wasn't an issue. When they first programmed the Alexa, they didn't think about, well, so what if it's bi-directional information? Well, that means somebody can break into your Wi-Fi and know when your kids are alone, know when you're alone. And so now we know that if we get women at the table as designers, as coders, as marketers, as lawyers, they can begin saying, hey, wait a minute, I'm part of the world. I want to make sure it is designed around me, around what I care about. And we want to make sure that girls feel like they have that confidence, that digital literacy, to use their voices around those important issues. So as the world gets recreated around technology, it gets recreated with us in mind too. We're half of the world. So it's so important to make sure girls get that sense of courage and confidence and leadership in many fields, but especially in digital leadership.
And Silvia, that takes us to the need for a national initiative. So can you kind of build on that?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, at Girl Scouts, there's a couple of things. I mentioned that, you know, my first words in English were a Pledge of Allegiance. And so, and in Girl Scouts, we have civic badges all the way from age 5 to 18, and we're going to add even more civic badges. But the other thing that we're seeing is that there's a really big STEM gap. And if you keep throwing money at it the way it's taught, in co-ed environments, you're going to keep getting what we got. I mean, that's what we've been doing and doubling down on it. But what we know at Girl Scouts is that we really changed the trajectory for girls, especially in non-traditional environments. It's the reason why almost every female astronaut that's been in space was a Girl Scout. 80% of all the female tech leaders in Silicon Valley that were born in the US, Girl Scouts. You know, I was just in Capitol Hill. I know, it's pretty impressive. I was just in Capitol Hill last week. 60% of the newly elected freshman class were Girl Scouts, the females. It's amazing. I mean, so we're 8% of the population, but an outsized, you know, outcomes and life outcomes. And at Girl Scouts, we're on a roll right now. We have 122 STEM badges, cybersecurity badges, coding badges, computer science badges, data analytics badges, robotics badges. So we want to give the girls the skills that they're going to be able to create the change and that they want to see in the world, and also to have amazingly great job and professional opportunities so that they have choices in their life. But we also see that in the United States, we have a gap. and especially in cybersecurity. We have cybersecurity badges now, yes. And girls really want them. Why? Because they have a digital life and they want to know how to protect themselves. But we in the US, if we don't have enough cybersecurity experts and people who can work in that field, we outsource it. And when you're outsourcing things like your electrical grid, your voting systems, your banking system, your financial systems, then that impacts our way of life. We need people who are loyal and patriotic to the United States who have those skills. And the only way we're going to close the gap is by having more women. And at Girl Scouts, we know how to get women who do these things. We've got 2 exhibits right here. And so we have a national initiative to get 2.5 million more girls in STEM by the year 2025. And we're raising $100 million because the other great thing about Girl Scouts is we're in every residential zip code. And other than the US federal government, we can rapidly deploy, and we have 100 acres of land throughout the US. So we can give you an outdoor STEM experience that blends outdoors and science. We can do that at a really low price point. Really, it's like $50 per girl for that 2.5 million. And I think that we could do it cheaper. The federal government couldn't do it for that price, let me tell you. And so for us, we really feel like we want to have every girl to have that knowledge and expertise so that even if she never becomes an engineer, and maybe she becomes, a fashion expert and creates the first line of wearable, fashionable clothes, as one Girl Scout is trying to do right now. And somebody says, well, you can't do that because that'll be too expensive. You have to reprogram the sensor. And she'll look at him and she'll go, that? Reprogram a sensor? I did that in middle school on my robotics team. That's not a big deal. We can do that, right? So we want to make sure that we have all over the United States, so it's less than half a day's drive, or even locally, that we have girls having those online STEM experiences. And I know here in Ohio, each one of your councils, including Tammy here, having a Dream Big initiative so that you can be part of that ecosystem where girls can have those hands-on experiences. Because it just doesn't matter to her and her life, it matters to us as a nation as well.
Yep. Absolutely.
That was fantastic. Yep. Where do we sign up?
Yes, that's it right there.
Probably on the table.
Ronnie, Jane, and yes.
So Kathy, you've traveled the world and the atmosphere. What are some of the most innovative programs you've seen that could benefit the community?
Oh, we've got a lot. We really have a lot of great examples here in town. I mean, people come from all across the country and other nations as well. To take notes from COSI and COSI's partners. COSI was part of standing up the Metro School. Annalise Corbin is in here somewhere from the PAST Foundation. Was a key player with her team in designing the integrative hands-on. So this is not just we're going to do science and the rest of life doesn't exist. No. Mm-hmm. This is we're going to take the habits of mind, the thinking skills, the analytical skills of science, and we're going to learn by actually doing projects. And part of learning, by the way, is absorbing and recasting and re-expressing what you just learned. The shallow version of learning is remember it long enough to check the box on the test. That gets you a grade, it gets your teacher a nice mark, it's gone by lunchtime, and it is not some learning that you can apply to some new circumstance. Silvia told you her story, I told you bits of mine, where you could see, I hope, certainly in the way Silvia told it, something she learned here in the cooking badge, she discovered she was applying in the science badge. So it's like you now own a hammer and a screwdriver and a wrench that you can apply to any problem. That takes expressing something. Mm-hmm. So, there's a big bit of a debate about STEM versus STEAM. The reality is arts and expression have to weave through all of these experiences to really result in the rich learning outcomes that transform people, that transform women and girls, and transform the prospects they have in their life. Silvia, as you were talking about the remaking of our world that's happening right now, I just kept coming back to Hamilton on stage. You all need to be in the room where this is happening. It is shaping your future and your world and your communities. And you end up running a household and raising children and never having a career, you're still going to want these skills because the issues coming in front of you as a parent with a sick child, as a voter on a county issue or a civic issue, those things are going to be in your life. You want to speak that language. You want to be able to see the little breakthroughs like Silvia said. That's not hard. We know how to do that. And that is hard. You're trying to dumb this down to fool me. You want to be that smart cookie. Not Thin Mints. So I am thrilled to see Girl Scouts really stepping up on this challenge and setting these bold targets because Silvia spoke truth. Girl Scouts is an organization that categorically changes trajectories for young women and girls.
Well, thank you. And one of the things, I applaud that. One of the things that we're also doing is re-looking at the curriculum so we teach it in a way that's interesting to girls. And I'll give you a great example. One of our partners is Raytheon, and they really work at making sure America is safe from those who would do us harm in the air, in the land, and in the sea. And they said one of the greatest areas that they need women is in aquatics. They just aren't getting women interested in aquatics. And they said, we want you to create either a journey or a badge for middle school girls to get them interested in aquatics. And we said, okay, so what are the key things? Well, you have to know about buoyancy and center of gravity. And then they said, and here's how you teach it. You get girls to build a boat and to race a boat. And we're like, okay. You want them to learn about buoyancy and aquatics? And we said, yes. And we said, okay, we're going to figure out how to get girls interested. Because middle school girls, if you look at a bell curve, there will be a few that are interested in racing a boat and building a boat. Not so many. So what we do now, instead, to teach those topics is for middle school girls, we get them to build a model corgi dog. You know, like the Queen's dog? Okay, low center of gravity, short legs. Not a good swimmer, right? Now the girl has to build that model corgi dog and name it, and then she has to submerge it in water, right? Now if your corgi dog does not have the right center of gravity, what happens? It drowns. What middle school girl wants her dog to drown, right? None, right? And then it has to be in the water for a certain time. Remember corgi's little legs, right? So you have to create a flotation device. So you learn about buoyancy, right? Now we find that middle school girls found that a lot more interesting than building a boat and racing a boat. So did they learn about buoyancy? Yes. Did they learn about flotation and center of gravity? Yes. Check and check. And now were they interested? Yes. Yeah. So we are remaking that type of programs, and one of the ones we're taking on, because it's stopping girls from getting into business, into engineering, and I almost hate to say it, but you're going to be seeing in the future math. I know. When I say that to girls, I get a groan. Oh! So we're going to what we call a corgi-ize math, because we realize that if we can do that, it's going to open up a world of opportunity. And 9th grade algebra keeps girls out of math and science and business, and especially underserved girls keeps them out of it in even higher percentages. And if we can help them learn it in a corgi kind of fun way, we'll be able to open up the choices that they have in life.
All right, before you start, I want to open it up because now we want to hear from you. So we want to hear your questions, and there's a microphone right here where this gentleman is standing, pointing to it. Yes, microphone. So make your way to ask questions. Now, here's the thing. We just need you to state your name and keep your questions concise, so that as many people as possible can ask questions. So again, we just need to hear who you are and your concise question. Thank you.
My name is Kristen Thompson, and I'm a Girl Scout leader in Westerville.
Yes, thank
The one question I have that is very stressful to me as a leader, why do we not recruit middle school and high school girls? If Girl Scouts start out younger and stay through the program, these things are great. But my daughter in 5th grade, she wants to stay, but a lot of her friends are like, that's for young girls.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. You know, when Title IX passed, we did what I call a dumb bunny. We forgot to continue to emphasize the lifelong benefits, especially getting into college, that Girl Scouts provides. So we have so besides learning all these amazing skills that Girl Scouts provide, we forgot to message that. So parents thinking, I need to advantage my child, I've got to put them in sports because there'll be a scholarship for them, and there'll be benefits for them, because sports does a really good job of telling that life story, right? We stopped doing that. Though as girls who stayed in Girl Scouts tended to have these amazing and continue to have these amazing life outcomes. So you're going to hear us continue to message that as well. And in addition to that, our awards, I like to say, it's kind of like the former governor of Texas, Ann Richards, she used to say that, Fred Astaire, he got all this acclaim for dancing, but Ginger Rogers did everything he did, but she did it backwards and in high heels. So most other organizations have one award. We have three top awards: the silver, the bronze, and the gold. And we haven't also messaged the silver and bronze are doing service leadership that has an impact in your community. And we ask you to link with your community, because what we find as people, organizations, other organizations, especially male-oriented, they rank. But women, we tend to link. So when you look at a bronze and a silver, that's very comparable to the Eagle Scout, because that's a service leadership award, and that's great for kids to do those awards. But then we have the gold award. The gold award is you provide a sustainable solution for a societal grand challenge. Wow. Isn't that amazing? Right, but we hadn't been calling it that. We hadn't been saying it was that, but that is really a sustainable solution for a societal grand challenge. We have begun messaging them, and as I've been doing that, I have universities, top universities, say to me, it's about time you at Girl Scouts figured it out, because silver and bronze and Eagle Scout, they get you higher in the admissions ranking, but the gold award, and these are elite universities, get you in the finalist pile. I was just talking to the organization that does all the Millennial Gates Foundation grants. Those are those 4-year fantastic grants for underserved, underrepresented. They said, gosh, Girl Scouts, it's about time you figured it out. We figured that out a long time ago. So when we see a gold award, she gets put in the finalist pile. And so the scholarships that are available are not only in the tens of thousands, they're full rides, complete full rides. They're really big scholarships. So we know that one of the reasons girls stop staying in Girl Scouts is because now their parents are saying, that was fun, you learned some great stuff, but now I got to get you ready for college. We need to start messaging how Girl Scouts is the premier way of getting you ready for college and for life, and that there's scholarships along the way. So thanks for your question.
Okay, there are 3 tall women here, and they made this short. Okay. All right, so first question, can I please get a selfie with both of you for my daughter?
Later.
Say yes. Good, okay, that's later. Okay, so very quickly, that same daughter was going to be a writer, and I was so excited because I'm a writer. And then she landed in high school in an all-male computer science class with a teacher who made her feel that she did not belong. She was the only girl. And she said that she stayed because she's stubborn, and she was not willing to be cast out, in a sense. And I remember when I saw all-male environments as a girl, I thought, oh, I don't belong, that's fine, that's how the world works. Whereas she said, absolutely not. So my question is, what are you seeing that is significantly different about girls today than it was when we or anyone was a girl? What is giving them that?
So I can only speculate what's giving each different girl that, but I see it, and I'm delighted to see it, in more and more young girls. Somewhere along life, everyone is going to encounter that kind of event. You're going to have the boss that doesn't like you, or the teacher that you don't like, whatever it may be, and a first reaction is going to be discomfort, don't fit here, looks hard, don't want to. And at some point in life, we all have to face that barrier and discover in ourselves what strength, and again, this is another muscle you build, what strength do I have to keep to my path? How does this help clarify my vision? But the world's a complex place, and people compete in different ways. I had an astronaut colleague I was taking into a high-profile test. I was senior, he was junior. I was doing him a really good favor to give him this stage. And we're walking across where we're going to get ready to do this test. I'm about to turn to him and give him the buck up, I'm glad you're here, we can really do this, the girls' cheer speech. And he sort of verbally does the equivalent of, I'll beat you to the corner. And I was at first sort of, what the heck is this? Is he trying to like take me out of the game, mess with my mind? But since I was senior, I stopped him. And I said, what the heck was that? And he said, he went through the same things I was about to say. This is a big test. It's really cool for me to be here. So incredible to be on this stage. I just wanted to buck us up and get us revved, make sure we were going to do our best. His way of making sure we were going to do our best was 180 degrees away. So his motives were the same, his tools were different. And I learned a lesson there to stay clear on, watch for motives, stay clear on tools, and stay clear on your course. So, kudos to you. Whatever you've been doing, probably by osmosis, has given her that inoculation to know you're allowed to be where you are. You're allowed to be curious about what you're curious about. You're allowed to invest in what skills you want to invest in. No one gets to edit those for you. They can have their opinions. They don't get to edit that for you.
Next question.
My question is for Silvia. In your role as CEO, how do you blend and balance the talent within your organization, new versus legacy, and what would be your profile of a leader of the future?
Oh, great question. So we're 107 years old as Girl Scouts. We're proud of our age. So we constantly have to have one hand holding on to tradition and our values that made us strength, the other hand holding to our values but looking to the future. And you can't just over-index on one, and you can't over-index on the other as well. So, but the same things that make you a great Girl Scout or make you get the best of the experience is that curiosity. Curiosity and willingness to learn. We're at an inflection point moving from the industrial age, to the age of digital. So you have to be interested in what girls are doing and curious about them. Because if you're not, that's what we're all about. If you're not curious in how girls learn and lead, this is what we do. So that's very key. People's sense of curiosity, people's sense of the mission to create girls of courage, confidence, and character who make the world a better place. And if you're not into that, then there's probably other places for you to focus on. So when we look at the organization, we always are trying to blend and making sure we have people who can honor the legacy, but also look forward. And looking forward as America changes in a way that brings people in and helps them learn how to have the best of the U.S. And when I think about that, for me, in being raised in a very traditional, Mexican household, we spoke Spanish, but luckily, as I mentioned to you, we learned English, and my troop leaders helped my mom learn English. But the other thing is, you're raised to not talk to adults. You literally you don't speak until spoken to. And I'm so grateful for the Girl Scout experience, the cookie program, because that caused me, for the first time in my life, to talk to adults. Yeah. And to actually speak, first. And that was a big shift. And so, so many women have told me that a lot of their success in life started with a cookie program because they had to learn these skills that maybe at first made them uncomfortable, but they did that through having to sell the cookie. And now it's ironic, I've heard this year a lot of people, baby boomers, come to me and say, we're so grateful for the Girl Scout cookie program, because this is the only time now that we are able to look at kids in the eye. Because now everybody has a mobile device in their eye. And so, now at the cookie booths, girls are looking at us and talking to us. This is so great.
We have enjoyed talking to you, and we are going to have time now for one more question before we move on. And I'm sorry for those of you who didn't get to ask a question, but we've got a real tight table here. So here's our last question.
I feel special. Yeah, this message is pre-approved by my daughter. I'm Maria Pla. Unfortunately, I didn't go to participate in Girl Scouts and medical school residency. I was a little bit busy. So this is related to science, why it seems like the only badge or criteria for Girl Scouts in medicine is the first aid badge. I think I just found out that Juliette Lowe died of breast cancer complications. I don't think many people know that. It's not really emphasized for like Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I mean, you can go on for that, but as far as, to me, it's a natural step, STEM going to medicine, and I just propose a second M for STEM for medicine.
Well, thank you. We do, I agree with you, and I will say, though, thanks to a Girl Scout, before 1993, a Girl Scout, an adult Girl Scout went to Congress, and do you know, before 1993, all cancer research funded by the United States government was only done on men. And when she asked why, they said, well, you know, you don't have to count for hormones. And she goes, well, okay, breast cancer. Up until 1993, all breast cancer research was only done in men in the United States. Okay? And when you asked, again, they said, what's the hormones? It's sort of like, that's the point, right? Right. But thanks to her, the law was changed, and we now know the difference, because prior to that, breast cancer was really, I think many of us can remember, it was a death sentence. And now it's amazing. And what kicked it off was her question, then getting the government to fund research. And when they funded research, they found ways that it could be cured. And now many of us benefit from it. I agree with you. I think medicine is definitely an area. We have a lot of great internships. I know I'm thinking about at Texas Tech, all the Girl Scouts get to go and see their real state-of-the-art work there. But how do we continue to expand that? That's a really good point. So thank you.
Thank you, and thank you all. Can we give our panelists a round of applause? It was so great to hear from both of you, and thank you for some really good questions, and I know you all have more. Now you're going to be talking with your table mates about the issues that you're going to, girls are facing today. There are questions, I'm told, on the table, so your table facilitator will moderate the discussion. Have a great time and some good conversation.
All right, so as the girls are getting pictures, we're going to continue on with our program, and because it's so important for girls to see it to be it, and right now they're seeing it, obviously. So we may have future rocket scientists and astronauts right here in our midst. We can only hope. We do have a video to play for you that shows just that. So let's play the video.
I'd like to drop out of high school and get a meaningless job that makes me feel bad about myself.
I'd like to fall victim to the old boys network.
I don't want anybody to notice me.
I want to earn a fraction of what I'm worth.
I just want to fly under the radar.
I want to splatter against the glass ceiling. I don't have an opinion.
I want to be a straight C student. I'm going to be a biomedical engineer. I want to succumb to peer pressure all of my life. I'm going to be a best-selling author and win the National Book Award.
I'm going to be a marine biologist.
Wait, I take mine back. I'm going to be a biomedical engineer.
I think I'll be the president.
I'm going to be Secretary of State.
World-class chef, right here.
Race car driver. Artist.
Paleontologist. Film director. Surgeon.
Teacher. Scientist.
Olympian.
I'm going to be the boss.
I'm going to change the world.
I just love that video because it truly does state that girls are going to change the world, and it's starting here today. They look at the world with inquisitive eyes, and they can be whatever they want to be. Many of you may or may not know that critical brain development starts in kindergarten. You hear a lot of things about girls getting into STEM in high school, and by then it's too late. And that's what's so beautiful about our programs, is we're starting them in kindergarten and taking them through high school. Tracy mentioned earlier that girls are forming their STEM identity by 3rd grade. And as Kathy mentioned, they need to build those muscles. It's not, I'm good at math, I'm good at science, I'm good at language. Build the muscles, and they can be whatever they want to be. Women represent 47% of the workforce, and yet only 28% of women are in STEM. And if you think about that, that's all STEM jobs. That's not only leadership. Those numbers are even more dismal. So we need to close the gender gap. And to do that, we're exploring a range of STEM fields and opportunities for girls. We're connecting them with role models like Kathy, Silvia, and Tracy, so that they can understand what it takes to get a career in science, technology, engineering, and math, where they can help people and make the world a better place. And we're trying to give them access to these resources through Girl Scout programs and through programs that are here in this room with our other facilitators with their organizations as well. Sylvia spoke of the STEM pledge of putting 2.5 million girls in the STEM pipeline by 2025, and we are doing our part right here in Girl Scouts of Ohio's Heartland. We just opened a makerspace, thanks to Battelle, this fall, where girls can have hands-on activities and opportunities in areas of laboratories of science, technology, engineering, and math. They can do woodworking, they can do coding, and we gotta look into the crickets, Sylvia. So, and in the coming months, you're gonna hear more about our Dream Big initiative, and that is what's next for bringing our community together to really apply programs and facilities for girls so that they can be whatever they want to be, the scientist, the astronaut, the teacher, you name it. Because again, if they can't see it, they can't be it. And today, I'm so glad that the girls were able to see some of our incredible individuals who have been trailblazers in our country. Thank you. So without further ado, I'd like to wrap up by introducing our board chair, Julie Holbein, to the stage. And it's her birthday.
You never remind a woman it's her birthday. And I was, Thank you, thank you, thank you. And as I told Silvia this morning, I don't consider aging, I consider every year leveling up. Like in video games, like I level up. Yeah, it's like a fine wine, I get better with age, right? Okay, so I'm gonna keep this closing short. So first of all, I wanna do a lot of thank yous. I wanna do a thank you to our sponsors who help us make this event what it is, and it gets better every year. I want to thank our wonderful guests today. So it's interesting, those of you who've known me a while in Columbus, one of my first jobs was at COSI. I was one of their first ever recruiters. And so Kathy was actually the president at the time of COSI and had the pleasure of working under her excellent leadership. And what I loved about COSI is they required you to play once a week. So that was one of the best opportunities I had. So thank you again, Kathy. It was a pleasure. And of course, Silvia. I've known Silvia for many years. I get to call her a friend. And who can, honestly say, how many people can say they have a rocket scientist as a friend? Like, that's incredible. So Silvia, again, thank you. I appreciate it. And thank to all of you for coming here today. I hope you were walked away inspired. A little bit shocked at the statistics, but yet knowing that what Girl Scouts is doing is helping to build those STEM muscles, those abilities, those interests. So what I would personally ask of you today, at your tables, you have envelopes. I would ask that you consider making a donation to help us continue to build those go-getters, innovators, risk-takers, and leaders, to really help us build girls of courage, confidence, and character who make this world a better place. So thank you again for your time. Before you leave and on your way out, I encourage you to reward those girls who are the entrepreneurs, building those business skills and selling cookies outside. I mean, and again, what breakfast gives you Girl Scout cookies? That's like a staple of like the best breakfast. So enjoy your day. Thank you again. We really appreciate your continued support.